Om Shanti. Let's spend a few moments in self reflection, then we'll start the session. Keep the body still. And slowly and gently come to the awareness I am a sweet soul. My internal world is very harmonious. I am happy with myself, comfortable within. My man, buddhi, and sanskar are in harmony. And through this harmony emerges a sweetness that makes me feel very full and comfortable. Just look at yourself. An energy of harmony and sweetness. Everything inside me is perfectly harmonious with each other. My man is in harmony with my buddhi and my sanskar. I feel very full and complete. In this state, I'm comfortable with myself, and a sweetness from within me emerges. This sweetness enables me to accept each soul around me as they are. When I meet someone, I extend a feeling of true love for them, which emerges from the sweet place within. No individual causes me discomfort. Nothing in the external world upsets me because I'm so very comfortable inside. This sweetness in me, this unconditional acceptance of the other, helps the other also experience sweetness within themselves. My act of acceptance helps them accept themselves. I'm sweet, a very sweet soul, and I'm creating a sweet world around me through my drishti and my attitude of acceptance. Just sit in this feeling for some time. Om Shanti. So, I left you yesterday with a few questions about who you belong to, whether you believe in God, if you believe in God, whether you know Him or her or it. We don't know what to use for God. So whether you know that entity, and then whether God is a someone or a something. So do we call that an it or a he or a she or a who or what? So we are not clear about a lot of things. But the first question, even before the first question, why are we talking about God? So the primary issue here is, who do I belong to? So I would like you to think about why there is this need for belonging in the human soul. Every person wants to belong to somebody. And why do we want to belong to somebody? Or why do, or even if, nobody belongs to me, I want to belong to somebody. So there is this sense that we should belong, we must belong to somebody. And mostly it is, and nowadays, because we are fed up of people and we have somehow figured out that we can't belong to people or they can't belong to us. So now we have started with pets. So now pets have to belong to us or we belong to pets. So then, what is it about this whole issue of belonging? And why do we want to or need to belong to someone? So you think about it and you can write your answers. Why do you think that every individual wants to belong to the other, or there is this need? We want to belong to people, to communities, to fraternities, to societies, to a country, to a religion. There is this deep search for this need of belonging. And this is why we come together and we form groups or we form relationships, and there is this whole need of belonging behind it. So why do you think you need to belong? It gives us a sense of security. Very nice. What else? We feel secured. So there are two security issues, right? So why it makes us feel secure. And what else is the reason why we need to feel belong to someone? So I would like everybody to think, to share our feelings, right? Who do I belong to? I belong to nature. So why do we need to belong to nature? So that is what I'm asking. What is it that we are seeking or sourcing, or why this need to connect or to belong? We are social beings, so yes, someone should take our responsibility. Yes, so very good. These are the reasons you need to belong. So the faculties of love, compassion, purity can be shared. Yes, to feel complete and loved, right? We don't want to be isolated, correct? Gives a sense of identification, very right. God is in every particle of this world. So those are those questions that I asked yesterday. Probably those answers are also coming. Very good. Now these issues that we want to feel a sense of security, we want to share love and compassion, or it gives us a sense of identity, or we don't want to feel isolated. Now the next question I want to think, you may want you to think about, is whether what you are seeking from this sense of belonging is actually becoming available. So are you feeling loved and secured? So that which you are seeking, is it being received from that source? So is actually the reason that we associate with people or with communities or with fraternities, so is that whole association giving us the result we are seeking? So we are anyways, does it give you a sense of total security? Of course, temporarily, yes, but does it fulfill you like always, or has it brought you to that inner fulfillment or inner state of feeling loved and secure and accepted? Okay, it's a mixed bag, not complete, correct, not exactly, not all the time. If we have faith in God, He will take care of us. So we have had faith in God, and I don't know whether He has taken care of us. So, so sometimes, yes. So we belong to, we want to belong to people, we belong to people, and then sometimes we get a sense of security, sometimes we get a sense that I am loved and accepted, sometimes we feel care and compassion and companionship, and other times we don't. Now I want you to evaluate, and this evaluation is a very difficult process, because if you properly evaluate, I want you to spend a whole day evaluating and checking what is the ratio between how much it how much that relationship gives you security, love and compassion, and how many times does it fail you. So make an assessment of whether it's a win lose, but then whether the win is more or the lose is more all day. So I want you to think about these things, because I have seen that, because I have been in a very empty position for very long. So then when I was empty, so I would source these things from people, and then sometimes they would give me what I need. So there would be a compliment, there would be a feeling that this person cares and loves, and they really think about me, or they think I'm their own, and all of that. But when I assessed, basically that ratio was very lopsided, like 10 is to 90. So 10 times out of 100 this thing happened, and 90 times it didn't. And then most of the time I was just hankering after it rather than having it. So that was the assessment I could get. Like, even with even not just with people, but even with money. So you keep pursuing money for a big period of your life, and then there are times when you get it and you feel great about it, but then how many times in a month do you feel that great? And other times you only feel empty and you're running behind it. So how much is the chase and how much is the attainment? So you must assess whether the chase is more than the attainment, or the attainment is more than the chase. And if the chase is more than the attainment, then it's not a good deal. So each one needs to assess for themselves. It is short lived and superficial. Depends on how much you interact outside yourself. Even if you interact a lot, I don't think you always get what you're looking for. So everyone needs to think about this assessment whether actually anybody belongs to us. So it's mostly the chase that we are always chasing people, places, things, and I have seen, I had a colleague in office, and what he would do is he would just every time I used to look at his desktop screen, he would be there would be this makemytrip.com open on the screen, and then he would keep looking for holiday destinations and this and that. So, and then he would keep checking ticket prices. So then one day I asked him, you, when is the last time you went to travel? So he said, 3 months back. So I said, in 3 months, you have explored 300 destinations. I've not gone to even one of them. So I said, this is what I can afford. So I'm doing it. So I can't afford 300 destinations in 3 months. So I'm not doing that. So I said, but do you know that this is also something you can't afford? But because you are not assessing that it is costing you so heavily, so you are paying a price in terms of your time, energy, and thought, which you are not valuing. So you could do a lot with that time, energy, and thought, which you are just wasting on that makemytrip.com. So so I said, you could just probably you value your money, but you don't value your time, energy, and thought. That is why you are just giving this away and not expecting anything in return. So he said, I am feeling very happy. So I said, how much time do you feel happy? So when you see a place, you feel happy, and then 2 hours you spend thinking, oh, I can't be there, or I can't afford it. So it is 5 minutes of happiness vis-a-vis 2 hours of loathing your state of life and creating ill thoughts about your present predicament. So what good is it doing? So probably we are not assessing the way we are living our lives. So this brings us to the question that whether we really belong to someone, or someone really belongs, or something really belongs to us. Because if just like we said, we need love, care, security. So in an earlier session, I talked about this fact that all our needs are actually spiritual, which we are trying to fill from material sources. So it is the soul that is seeking peace, purity, love, happiness, bliss, and power. And we are trying to source it from people, places, and things. So if you try to fulfill a spiritual need from a material source, then temporarily it might create an illusion that yes, it is getting fulfilled, but then it leaves you more and more empty day by day. So the emptiness is growing and the illusion is also growing. But basically, the whole problem is you are trying to solve a spiritual problem with a material source. So it doesn't feel like that. Okay. So, and when our needs are spiritual, so what are we actually seeking? We are seeking true love, genuine happiness, pure bliss. Yes. So absolute purity and unadulterated power. So we are looking for these things, but then we are looking for it in people, places, and things. Now, all around you, there is no person, place, or thing which is in such a high state in its consciousness that it has love, peace, purity, happiness, bliss, and power. Only nature perhaps has some amount of peace and purity contained. Otherwise, no people, no persons, no places, no things contain these elements that you are looking for these days. because everything is in its depleted state, tamo pradhan state. Okay, so yesterday I was having a walk from this center to some place, and then while walking, I just observed that there is so much of foul smell early in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. If you just breathe the air, you can feel that it smells bad and it smells rotten. So I was just making this observation that if you take note of it, nothing outside in the world today is pure or blissful or energizing, and only maybe in some places where there is untampered nature, maybe you get a slight glimpse of purity and peace. Otherwise, everywhere there is this human intervention, and there is this tamo pradhanta that we call this state of this state of absolute depletion. So, when we talk about sourcing these inner resources from the external world doesn't have any person, anything, or any place which can fill us with these requirements. So that is why if you keep looking for it outside, it will give you some temporary relief, and it will make that illusion persist, but ultimately you will only be your heart will be empty and your hands will be empty too. So this is how it goes. So that is why this question about who do I belong to, or basically what we are asking by who do I belong to, is who is the one who will fulfill me with this purity, peace, love, happiness, bliss, power, and knowledge that I am seeking. Okay, so these days you are living in an information age, and there is no dearth of information. Everybody has a lot of information at hand. Now, in this coronavirus situation, you had no lack of information. You were so informed about everything, right? You know how many deaths, you know what is the cause, you know what is the prevention, you know a lot of things. But then, does it make you feel in control? No. So knowledge is meant to make you feel in control. So when you know something, you should feel in control about it. But then knowledge is not making us feel in control, because it is not knowledge that we have at our disposal. We only have information, which is a bad substitute of knowledge. So, just like we have bad substitutes for purity, peace, love, happiness, bliss, and power, we also have bad substitutes for knowledge. So, that is information. So, we need true knowledge, wisdom, we need true love, we need purity, we need happiness, we need peace, we need bliss, and we need power. And these are not wants or desires, these are needs of the soul. And somebody should be there to fill us with these needs, and somebody permanent, somebody who is always there. So, this is why there is a need for God. So, most people don't appreciate the need for God in their life. And in my language, I call that some people don't have the God chip. So, some people think that why think about God, or what is the need for God. So, first we need to understand why we need God in our lives. So, it's not because God will get angry because if we don't need Him. So it's not to fulfill God's ego in any way. So God has no problem if we don't need Him. But the thing is, we have a problem if we don't need Him. And basically, every soul is empty today, and the only one who can fill the soul is God. Because by definition, God is called the ocean of purity, ocean of knowledge, ocean of love, ocean of peace, ocean of bliss, ocean of power. And you have all sung hymns and praise about God, saying these words that you are Gyan ka Sagar, Pavitrata ka Sagar, Prem ka Sagar, Shanti ka Sagar. So we say God is the ocean of knowledge, purity, peace, love, happiness, bliss, and power. So only the ocean can fill us because there is an ocean of emptiness inside. Yes, so these days, if you have observed yourself, nothing is enough. And there is so much of emptiness that if even if somebody from morning, from daybreak to night, they told they love you, you are still not sure whether they love you. So at the break of dawn, they tell you, I love you. Then they tell you, please trust me. Then they tell you, I really love you. Then why don't you believe I love you? Then at the end of the night also, they tell you, I love you. And then you say, I don't know whether you love me or not. So there is no way that somebody can actually make us feel loved. Okay, so there is no way that anybody can actually make us feel loved because it requires an ocean of love to make us feel loved. That is the that is the emptiness inside us. Now you see, you go to a nature resort, you spend 5 days, and then how many hours does it require for you to feel empty? 2 hours. You are back on the flight in 2 hours and you land in your place and then you start feeling empty again. And do you remember a time when you used to watch one movie and then you could stay in its what do you say in its intoxication for a week? So some 30 years back, you were in that state that you watched one movie or you had one trip and it could like keep you intoxicated for about a week or a month. So you had one trip and you could live on that trip for an year. And you used to, and we used to talk like this. We went to our maternal uncle's place last summer and it was so nice and so great, and we could thrive on that for an year until we went to Nanighar again. So that was the state. So we were not that empty then. So when we were not that empty, we required this much to fill us. And now that we are so empty, whatever we consume is less and it doesn't fill us. So that is the amount of vacuum or the emptiness inside. So there is a comment that we are a part of soul. Then how are we empty? We are not a part of soul. We are a soul. And why do we need God to fill the emptiness inside us? Because we are a soul, and in the journey of the soul, we understood that the soul becomes body conscious after some time. And then, because of that body consciousness, we lose our inner state, our love, peace, purity, because the law is if you don't use it, you lose it. And we keep blocking our energy all the time and sourcing it from outside. And this is why we get more and more empty. So, right now, we are very empty because of that, right? So, we need somebody to fill us up, and that is God, because He is the ocean of peace, purity, love, happiness, bliss, and power. Now, the thing is, up until now, also we have prayed to God and connected to God in some or the other manner. But we didn't know that our needs are spiritual. So, what we were seeking from God were material things. We wanted a house, we wanted some company, we wanted money, we wanted this project to go well. We wanted everything external because we thought that God is a source and the aim is material prosperity. Okay, so God was a resource, God was not the aim. God was a resource and the aim was material prosperity, because we thought material prosperity is equivalent to inner fulfillment. Okay, but now we understand. How many of you are decently materially prosperous. I don't want you to raise hands or anything, but by social standards, you are decently materially prosperous, and yet you feel empty inside. So we all we understand this feeling, and this is why we have come to a place where we understand that it is not material unaccomplishment or something else which is actually making us feel empty inside. It is something else. So it is spiritual unaccomplishment or spiritual emptiness. And so when now we talk about God, when we are connecting with God, it is not to think that God is a source of material prosperity and material prosperity is a source of inner fulfillment. So that equation we are done with. Now we are very clear that God is the source of spiritual prosperity, spiritual fulfillment, and our emptiness is spiritual emptiness. All right. And whatever is on the material will automatically flourish once you're full inside. Okay. You all know the law of attraction better than me. So, what is the law of attraction? You attract as you are. So, if you're full inside, you will be full outside. That is how it works. Okay. It doesn't work. If I want to be full inside, I will be full outside. No. If I am full inside, I will be full outside. So, if you just focus on filling yourself within, then external prosperity also you will attract. You will start, you will start finding yourself at the right place at the right time. So that will happen when you are full inside. The universe starts working with you. So you need God because God is the source of spiritual fulfillment. God is the ocean of purity, peace, love, happiness, bliss, and power. Now, this is why we need to know God. Okay, so the next question that I asked you was, do you know God? So when I say, do you know God, I want you to think about whether you know 6 things about God: His name, His form, how He looks like, he, she, it, whatever. Okay, so the name of God, the form of God, the address of God. Okay, the qualities of God. What does God do? And what is my relationship with God? Okay, so if you want to connect with God, you need to know these 6 things about God, because you cannot connect with somebody if you don't know them well. Okay, so you can only connect to me now because you know where to log in. Yes, you know how I look, you know how I talk, you know how I think. If you don't know all this, you can't connect to me. So you need to know where to log in order to talk to God. You need to know how He looks. You need to know how He feels. You need to know what He can give you and what He can't give you, or what He does and what He doesn't do. Because if you are contacting Him for something that He doesn't do, then you will only return empty handed. So just like, in the if you write an application in the health ministry for constructing better roads, then that application will go to the dustbin because it doesn't pertain to them. So if you are writing to God or talking to God about things that He is not concerned with, then that is going to the dustbin because He is not concerned with those things. Okay, so you need to clearly know what God does, who He is, how He thinks, what is His department, what is not, and what is the relationship you share with Him. Because if you don't share a relationship with somebody, you cannot ask them for anything. Okay, so that is why, because we don't have a relationship with God, we are operating like beggars and not like people who deserve. Okay, so if I have a relationship with you, then I can be very, what do you say? Um, I can say I can demand something from you, right? So, but if I don't have a relationship, I can't demand. I'll keep begging, and then I'll be at the mercy of somebody. But then you don't need to be at the mercy of God, because you can demand from God. But for that, you need to be in a place where you feel you have a relationship with God. So, how many of you feel that you have ownership over God, or you have a relationship with God and you can demand God to do this? Okay, very good. Yes. So you need to have this confidence in you that God belongs to you and you can demand this from Him. I will tell you a very small incident. So there was this one lady who came to me, and she used to come to me very often. But that day she came and she was really disturbed about something. And as a personal policy, uh, teachers in the BK organization do not give personal solutions. Like, if you ask me whether I should buy a red car or a white one, I will not tell you which one you should buy. So I will tell you, you buy what you like, right? So we don't choose for you, or we only tell you what is good, bad, right, wrong, or what God says, but we don't make choices for you. So this lady, she came and she sat and she said, my mother is very old, and she's 78 years of age, and fell down from the bed yesterday night, and she broke her back. So now we don't know whether we should get her operated or we shouldn't get her operated, because there are very slim chances that the operation will be successful. So I told her, what happens if you don't get her operated? So she said, then she lies on the bed and she can get bed sores and she will have a miserable life. So I said, basically, it was not my place to give her a choice about what to do. But I think I got emotional and I said, but that's not a good idea that somebody lies on bed and gets bed sores. So even if the operation goes wrong, she will still be on the bed. So what is the problem? So you get her operated. Now, as soon as I realized that I actually made a decision for her, she just ran. She didn't look back. She said, Didi told me, and now I'm off. She went, and then I realized that no, this is not something I should have done. And I thought, what if the operation goes wrong? Then do I take ownership of that decision? And that's not a very wise thing that I did. So I went to Baba and I sat in meditation and I told God, look, I belong to you and I made this decision for that individual. I know it was not the best thing to do, but I had no intention of doing it, but it just happened. So now you have to make sure it goes well. Do you get it? so so I just told God like that, now you have to make it go well, and if it doesn't, I am going to talk to you. So then I went back, and then next morning at 8 o'clock she called me and she said, दीदी वो ऑपरेशन तो ठीक हो गया, and you gave me a very good suggestion, and now she's fine. So I said, then I again went to God and I sat in meditation. I said, I will not repeat my mistake, but thank you that you actually stood by me and stood by my word. So I'm very thankful to you for that. So this is the kind of relationship you can have with God, but only when you live by his rules. So if you always go by what he says, even if you make a mistake inadvertently, he will be responsible. Okay, so this is about having a relationship, and we all are into relationships, and we all know how relationships are made and how they are sustained. How are relationships sustained? So when you belong to somebody, you do what they expect of you. Yes. And when you do that, they become bound to do what you want them to do. Yes. And in humans are sometimes by nature maybe not that trustworthy, or some human being could be a betraying person at heart. So even if you do everything for them, they might not think they are bound to give it back to you, right? But with God it is not like that. So if you forge a relationship with God and you do what he wants you to do, you be who he wants you to be, you go by what he says, then he is also bound to be there for you, even if you inadvertently make a mistake. So I gave you an example of a mistake because even when you make a mistake, he stands by you because you belong to him and he belongs to you. This is the relationship you can have with God. So but for that, you need to know what God says, what is in his heart, what is in his mind, and what he expects of you, or what he wants his child to be like. So for that, we need to start from the first question, which is, what is God's form and name? Okay. So how can we know what he wants to say? I'm here to tell you what he wants to say. This is what I'm doing, right? So I will tell you first what he wants to say. And then when you start knowing this is God by because what I tell you resonates with you. So here you have to discern whether what I'm saying resonates with you. And if that resonates with you, then I'll connect you to the source. So you can yourself know what he says. Okay. So first I will give you an advertisement. So this is an advertisement about what God says. And then if you like the ad, you can go and have the product yourself. So that is how it works. So then you can have the source from which all this knowledge is coming. So first things first, what do you think is the form of God? So some people say God is energy. And uh, all of you agree that God is energy. If somebody, is there somebody who doesn't agree God is energy? You can just raise your hand. So everybody says God is energy, right? So energy is a very nice word to work with. Now, this energy is a very confusing word because when we say energy, we don't make a distinction between physical energy and conscient energy. Inconscient energy and conscient energy, which in Hindi is called Jad or Chetan. Okay, so we don't make a distinction between living energy and non-living energy or conscient energy, Chaitanya Satta, and inconscient energy, Jad Satta. So you must have come across this debate whether plants are living or not. Okay, whether plants have life or not. So this brings us to the question, what do you call is living and what is non-living? What is the measure of what is called living and what is called non-living? Because when you say energy, living is also energy. You are a soul, you are energy, but you are different from the energy from which a table is made. That is physical energy. You are non-physical energy. You are conscient energy, Chetan Satta. So this distinction has to be made because this word energy confuses you a lot if you don't make this distinction. So when we say God is an energy, we need to discern, is he the soul kind of energy or the table kind of energy? Okay, is he the physical kind of energy or the non-physical kind of energy? So now when you say living energy and non-living energy, or physical energy or conscient energy and the other kind, the distinction is the conscient energy, the Chetan Satta, has the ability to create thoughts and feelings, has the ability to choose this over that. Okay, so there is the ability to choose, there is the ability to create thoughts and feelings. Okay, now the ability to absorb vibration is there in every form of energy. Okay, even plants absorb vibration, water absorbs vibration, your food absorbs vibration, your table absorbs vibration, everything absorbs vibration. But the difference between living and non-living arises whether when we are able to create a vibration on our own or not. If you are a creator, you are living. If you are just a consumer, you may as well be non-living. Okay, so every non-living energy is also a consumer. Like if you, your water, the water where you are sitting right now is also absorbing the energy of the class. Do you know that? So you are a soul absorbing that energy. The water in your room is also absorbing that energy. But your water cannot create that energy on its own. You can. Okay, you can create it. The water cannot create it on its own. Somebody has to create for it to consume. That is why living or conscient beings create energy, non living consume energy. In Sikhism, there is a very good expression of this called Chadti Kala Tere Bahane Sarv Ka Bhala. So when you rise, everything rises. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji told human beings that it is you who, when rise, then the flora and fauna and everything in the external environment goes into its ascending stage. They also rise because you are the creator. So, a soul, an individual who has the capacity to create thoughts and feelings, they can consume your energy and they can also grow. Do animals and birds create energy? No, they don't. They only absorb. Can you teach a dog to think positive? No. If the master shouts, the dog shouts. Okay, so they will absorb that energy. That is why when you train animals, what do? You create that environment and they pick on that energy. Okay, so this is how, and the absorption is in different degrees, but they cannot defend themselves against the environment. So the environment will have an effect on them. So this is why we have to make a distinction between conscient energy and inconscient energy. And this is why I asked you this question: is God a someone or a something? Because when we say something, then also God is energy, but then he is the inert kind or the non or the physical kind. And when we say he's a someone, then he's a living entity with a mind and intellect and sanskar. So God thinks, God makes choices, God makes decisions, and he is an entity who can think and create feelings and thoughts. So that is why I asked you this question: is God a someone or a something? So now, what do you think? Is God a someone or a something? How many say someone? Raise one finger up. And something, how many say? And what about people who are saying nothing? So there are some who said some nothing, like no someone, no something. So you can speak up. So God is a someone, so not a something. So God is a Chetan Satta. That is why you say Sat Chit Anand. Sat Chit Anand. So in that Sat Chit Anand, that Chit is for Chaitanya. So God is not some energy like air who is all encompassing and flowing from here to there. No. God is a living energy capable of creating thoughts, feelings, and making decisions and choices. All right. So that is God. God is a someone. Now, the next question is, can a someone be everywhere? Or a someone has to be somewhere? Okay, so you think about this today, whole day. Can a someone be everywhere or a someone has to be somewhere? Okay, so you think about this. I will leave you with this question today. You think about it and we will talk about it tomorrow, right? Now, for today, we talked about God, the need of God, that God is the ocean of all that the soul needs. And that is why we need to know God and have a relationship with God so that we can connect with Him and have what is lacking in us. All right. So He can't be, so you have to ask, if He is a being, can He be everywhere? You are a being, can you be everywhere? Ask yourself this question, because we have a very remarkable capacity. And what is that capacity? Do you know? Keep 5 paradoxical ideas in 5 corners of the brain and do nothing about any one of them. So, all the paradoxes you keep in different corners of the brain and do nothing about them, because if you don't have to do anything about anything, then you don't need to think about whether it is coherent or not. But now that you are actually trying to understand God and connect, you have to rule out the paradoxes. So you have to think about, you are a someone, can you be everywhere? And if God is a someone, can He be everywhere? So you just think about this, okay? All right. So are there some questions? Okay. How can we know what he wants to say? I will tell you what he wants to say. Okay, so these are all answers. I have a question. 2 days back, my new flatmate came here and she is of my age and she is in airlines. Since she came, she is saying I'm earning this much at this age, and somewhere she is putting me down and asking me not to go to the gym and asking me not to go to the gym and do dieting and all. So, anyways, even if she is earning so much, she's still your flatmate. She can only afford that house, which you can also afford. So then you don't need to feel very bad about it. And you can tell her that if she earns so much, she can afford something better. Okay, so and if she affords only this much, then you are as good as her. So that is something. And if she can afford better, she will leave you, and good for you. All right. So don't so she cannot put you down unless you allow her to, right? Okay, so but I will tell you one incident. There was one brother who used to come to me, and he was a businessman, and he told me, you spoiled your life by being in Brahma Kumaris. So I said, okay, if you suggest something better I could do with my life. So he said, you could have been an IS officer, you could have been this and that, or us, and you could have been a successful businesswoman like me. And then I said, but then in the end, you are coming and sitting in front of me and asking for suggestions. So I am doing better than you, is it not? So then he laughed. So that is what, you don't have to feel miserable about who you are, because whatever you are doing with your life is good enough. And you need to assert that if somebody says the opposite. Why do we say there is heaven and hell? So there is no heaven and no hell, or like there is no heaven on top and hell underneath. That way, hell and heaven don't exist. So heaven and hell exist, but in what way, we will talk about that. So where there is love, peace, and happiness, that is heaven. So there was a time in this world also where there was heaven. So this world was replete with peace, positivity, love, and happiness. So that time we call heaven, and this is hell. That is why when somebody dies, we say they went to heaven because they were in hell. So this right now life is hell. So when somebody leaves from here, you say they went to heaven, they have left for heavenly abode, because anything apart from this is heaven now. So heaven and hell depend on consciousness, and then consciousness leads to behavior, and then what you make of the whole society is heavenly or hellish. Okay. Ankit Jain is Poonam Jain. That is all right. Okay. Galaxy A31 is Shalini. All right. Thank you. You could just change your screen name to your original name. That would be helpful. What you eat will eat you. Please explain. So you don't only eat with your mouth, you eat from your eyes, you eat from your ears. So whatever you consume becomes part of your spiritual energy. And then the way you are causes you to be peaceful or bothered or miserable. So that is what I mean by what you eat will eat you. Okay, so iPhone is Sunita Chaudhary, that I know. Okay, then how to reduce mental weight? By thinking less. By thinking less. And there is this strange idea that we carry that if I stop thinking, the world will collapse. So somewhere you are holding this world together with your thinking. I don't know, there's this bizarre way in which we are holding this world together. So everything in the world we are holding together with our thought, it seems. But then it's not like that. If you do what you can about any situation, don't think any extra thought. That's not that's not making it better, it's only making it worse. So when you realize this and stop thinking about things that are not in your control, then you reduce mental weight. Why change for good hurts? Change for good hurts. Addicts, and we are addicted to things that are not good for us. So when you change your habits that are not good for you, it will hurt, because it hurts because it's a new way of life, and that newness takes some time to embrace, right? Do we have to answer what anyone thinks or let them think? See, if you have to live with somebody for very long, it's a good idea to have a communication, because if you just don't say anything, what happens is this becomes a repeated thing. And if it's a one time thing, you meet somebody on the street and they have a comment to make, you don't need to answer. But then if you're living under the same roof and it is getting this goes on every day, it's a good idea to communicate what you think about the situation. Okay, so or submit for once at least, and then don't expect them to understand. They may or they may not understand, but it's a good idea to speak up your mind if you have to live with that person, because effective communication is very important. Okay. Why do Hindus have so many forms of God? We will talk about that. So, in Hinduism, we talk about God as Isht Devi and Isht Devata. So, Isht means wish fulfilling, इच्छा पूर्ण करने वाले. So when you say Isht Devi and Isht Devata, so then you need to have as many Devi Devatas, as many as you have wishes. So you have so many wishes, so many Devi Devatas. That is why you say Dhan ke liye Lakshmi, Vidya ke liye Saraswati, hai na? So you have so many desires, so corresponding to every desire you have a deity. Because the desires multiplied, the deity is also multiplied. And I will tell you one thing, up to the 80s, there was no Santoshi Ma. You can find it on Google, it's there on Google. So up to the 80s there was no Santoshi Ma. Then this idea of Santoshi Ma became very popular after that film called Jai Santoshi Ma. So that movie came up, and then suddenly Santoshi Ma gained popularity because of that. So then everybody wanted contentment, so that thought, okay, this is for contentment, so let us have Santoshi Ma ke vrat. So, and I remember that time because my mother used to go after every new Devi Devata in town. Okay, so whatever came up, she used to go and do that at that time. So we used to know this is the season. So now she'll go after this. So that is why I'm very acquainted with this trend about Santoshima, because earlier it was not there. So, so this is why we have so many deities. We will talk about all of this in detail later on. So, how to reuse, if it is beyond our physical or mental, if is it reuse actually, uh, or is it some typing error? How to assess is it if it is beyond our physical or mental ability? What is it? How to refuse? Okay. If it is beyond our physical or mental ability. So refuse to somebody else. So somebody is making a demand on you which is beyond your physical or mental ability. So you do your best and then you just say, I'm sorry, I can only do this much. But the thing is, um, you don't want the other person to think you are not capable of doing it, a, or sometimes you are in a position where you want to do something for them even if it is not in your capacity. So that these two things are about your ego and your attachment. So you need to work on that. So if you want you, it's not about refusing other people, it's about dealing with my own ego and attachment. Okay. Okay. I have been maintenance inches for 5 years. Prior me, there are other people who maintained. One flat owner started complaining that my accounting before handling over. He is screaming for nothing. Whatever happens in the apartment, I am responsible. However, I have support, but not commenting on this. For me, this is totally disturbing. I knew I did it well. Please advise. I'm in charge. Okay. I'm in charge. I'm maintenance in charge for 5 years. Okay. So, people will not be happy with whatever you do always. And you have to give an assessment. Like, in offices, what we do is we maintain a register about what we did every day, and if somebody wants to check on it, we just submit that okay, this is what we have done and this is for your perusal, that this is what I did with my time and energy, and for the pay I get back. And if that is not good enough, there is no other way to convince. So you can just show whatever proof you have, and only to people who you are accountable to, not to everybody. But if you're really accountable to somebody, you explain to them that this is the position and this is what I've been doing. Don't create hurt about they not taking you well. So just know that even if you do your best, people will not take you well sometimes, and it's okay. You give in your submission that I did this to the best of my ability, and rest it is up to them. If they want to feel miserable about you, they can. Okay, so, and if you fear losing your job, then there are some fears which are real. Those fears arise from something that you have not done, which was necessary on your part to do. So you make amends about it, or you have done something wrong in your conduct in your workplace, which you need to correct. And some fears are psychological, they have to be dealt with. So, fears that are arising because you have done something that you didn't need to do, or not done something that you required to do. Those things need to be taken care of, And if there is something that there is nothing of this kind, and you think you have done everything as you should and could, then it is a psychological fear, and you have to tell yourself that I'm a good person and I deserve good and only good will happen to me. So you need to placate yourself or pacify yourself with these thoughts. So this is how it works. If we hurt people, they send negative vibrations. Is it true? And if yes, how to overcome? So, how to overcome? Stop hurting people. Okay. Now, how to not hurt people in the first place? So, okay, this is a very good question. So, when you think, you speak, you walk, you act, be aware that there are people around you, and take cognizance of what your actions, how your actions are affecting them. Okay, sometimes we are so self obsessed, we don't take cognizance of how our behavior is affecting other people. So you need to just broaden your horizon and see how your behavior is affecting others. Okay. Animals are living beings, they have soul. How they only absorb energy, not radiate energy. Okay. So they radiate energy, but they don't create energy. They radiate back what they absorb. Okay. And about animals, they don't have the right brain, they have the left brain. Okay, so left brain is the responding brain, right brain is the creative brain. So they don't create, they only respond. So when they only respond, they radiate their responses, but they cannot choose their responses. Okay. Is it necessary to visit temples? Um, uh, if you want to visit temples for just, visiting them, you can. So nowadays, people don't go to temples for anything else rather than touring or sightseeing. So every temple has become a sightseeing place these days. And temples which are not sightseeing stations are seldom visited these days. So it depends on why you want to visit a temple. And it is absolutely not necessary to visit anywhere which you don't find necessary. Okay, so it depends on you whether you find it necessary or not. All right, thank you. So let's meditate for few seconds. It's already late today. Chaliye. Sit still. Slowly unplug from everything else and come to the awareness that I am a soul. I live in this world where souls and matter surround me. I have to continue to be with them. This is my context of life. But I deeply realize that no one and nothing can fulfill me. The only one that can fulfill me is God. I turn my attention to God. I feel His loving presence around me. As soon as I think about God, I feel He's present with me. God is the ocean of love. Just as I think about God, I feel surrounded with love. All around me, there is a canopy of love. I suddenly feel embraced and accepted. My heart feels full, nurtured, and healed in this loving presence of God. Just sit in this feeling for some time. Om Shanti.